I'll never forget the way my own son looked at me that day. The coldness in his eyes, the sharpness in his voice, and the way every guest turned their heads when he said those words. "Mama, you need to leave." At his wedding, in front of everyone. And the worst part, I had saved that seat for myself, right there on the front row, a seat a mother should always occupy on her child's big day. Welcome to Elderly Story. Make sure you like and subscribe for your top-notch stories. Let us know in the comments section where you are watching from and what time you are currently watching this video. Now, let me take you back a little, because the truth is, things didn't just happen overnight. My name is Loretta. I'm 63 years old, and I raised my boy, Terrence, mostly by myself. His father left when he was 5, and from then on it was me, 2 jobs and sleepless nights. I poured everything I had into that boy, my money, my time, my prayers. I thought, if nothing else in this world, he'd remember how much his mama gave up for him. But life has a cruel way of reminding you that children don't always grow up remembering your sacrifices. The wedding day started off beautifully. The church was packed, flowers everywhere and people smiling. I had on my best navy blue dress, my hair done just right, and I held my head high. I was proud to be his mother, proud to have lived long enough to see this day. I walked into the church with confidence, but when I reached the front row where the groom's family should sit, there was a woman already there. She looked at me like I was lost. "This seat is reserved," she said sharply. I smiled politely. "Yes, I know, baby. It's reserved for me. I'm Terrence's mama." But instead of moving, she tilted her head and said, "I was told to sit here." Something didn't feel right in my chest. I glanced at the little name cards on the chairs. My eyes went wide. There wasn't one with my name, not a single one. My son's bride's family had theirs, mother, father, even cousins had names written out neatly. But for the groom's side, just a couple of blank seats, and none of them were for me. My hands began to shake, but I took a deep breath and told myself maybe it was just a mistake. I wasn't about to make a scene, not on my son's wedding day. So I quietly found another spot, just 2 rows back, where I could still see everything. But my chest was heavy. Why wasn't my name on a seat? Why hadn't he made sure I was placed up front where mothers belong? I pushed the thoughts down until later during the reception. That was when it all unraveled. The DJ announced the parents for their entrance. The bride's parents came in, the crowd clapping and cheering. My heart beat faster, waiting for my turn. But then, silence. They moved straight on to the bridal party. My name was never called. I sat frozen in my chair, forcing a smile while people around me gave me pity glances. It felt like knives cutting into me. And then came the moment, the one that still makes my throat tighten when I think about it. Dinner was served, and I stood up to finally take the seat I had saved at the corner of the head table. But the moment I sat down, my son walked over. He didn't whisper. He didn't pull me aside. No, he leaned down right there in front of his bride's family, the guests, everyone, and said, "Mama, you can't sit here. I told you already. You need to leave." The air went still. Forks stopped midair. Heads turned. My hands trembled against the tablecloth. I whispered back, "Leave? Baby, this is your mama you're talking to. I carried you. I raised you. How could you?" But before I could finish, his bride put her hand on his arm and nodded, as if to encourage him. And that was when I knew. This wasn't just about me being in the wrong seat. This was deeper, something ugly, something I hadn't yet uncovered. And let me tell you the truth I would later find out cut far deeper than his words that night. Before we dive in deeply, let us know in the comments what country or which city you're watching this story from. We'd love to know how far this story travels. I sat there frozen, my body heavy like I'd turned to stone. All I could hear was the clinking of glasses and whispers rippling through the tables around me. My son, my only child, had just ordered me to leave his wedding table in front of everyone. For a moment, I couldn't even stand. My knees locked, my palms pressed into the table so hard my fingers went numb. Then I heard a man's voice, deep and firm, cut through the tension. "Loretta, maybe you should just find another seat." It was her father, the bride's daddy. He stood there with his chest puffed out like I was some uninvited guest crashing the celebration. My pride screamed inside me, but my heart begged me to stay calm. I didn't want to embarrass Terrence further, even though he had already embarrassed me. Slowly I stood up, holding the edge of the table so no one saw my hands shaking. I could feel eyes following me, pity burning into my back. My heels tapped against the floor louder than the music, each step sounding like judgment. As I walked away, I whispered to myself, "Keep your head high, Loretta. You didn't raise him to treat you like this. Something is wrong. Find out what it is." I moved toward the far side of the hall where the less important guests sat. I slipped into an empty chair next to a cousin I hadn't seen in years. She gave me a weak smile, like she wanted to say something but didn't dare. For a few minutes I tried to eat, but my stomach churned. Every bite felt like sand in my mouth. I kept my eyes on my son. He laughed, clinked glasses with his new wife, fed her cake with his own hands. The boy I raised looked so happy, and yet he had no room for me at his own table. Then it hit me. This wasn't accidental. No, this was intentional. Planned. Somebody had wanted me pushed aside. I leaned toward my cousin, lowering my voice. "Did you hear him? Did you see what happened up there?" She sighed, eyes darting toward the head table. "Loretta, maybe this isn't the right time." "No," I pressed. "What's going on? Why would my own son do that?" Before she could answer, the bride's mother swept past us, her perfume thick and sweet. She stopped just long enough to lay her manicured hand on my shoulder and whisper, "Loretta, dear, sometimes it's best to know when your place isn't needed anymore." Her words sliced through me like glass. My jaw tightened, but I stayed silent. I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. But inside, my mind was a storm. Why would she say that? Why would Terrence treat me like I was nothing? What was being kept from me? The rest of the evening blurred by in slow motion. I clapped when they danced, though my hands barely made a sound. I forced smiles when pictures were taken, though none of them included me. And when they cut the cake, I watched from a corner like a stranger. But the most painful moment came when Terrence stood up to give a speech. His voice boomed through the microphone. "I just want to thank the people who shaped me into the man I am today. To my beautiful wife, my in-laws, and to everyone who stood by me." He looked out at the room, his eyes swept right over me like I was invisible. He never said my mother, not once. And that was when I knew I had to find out the truth. Something or someone had poisoned my boy's heart against me. That night, as I left the wedding hall alone, the air sharp and cold on my skin, I made a silent vow. I wasn't just going to walk away and accept this. No, I was going to uncover what they had told my son, and why he no longer saw me as his mother. Because whatever it was, it had stolen my place in his life. When I got home that night, I didn't take off my dress. I didn't remove my heels or my earrings. I just sank into the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying every second of that wedding like a broken film reel. The music, the laughter, the way Terrence looked at me with no warmth. It gnawed at me. I whispered out loud, "What did they tell you about me, Terrence? What lies did they feed you?" My phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text. For a split second, my heart leapt. Maybe it was him. Maybe my baby was reaching out, but when I picked it up, my chest sank. It was from an old friend of mine, Yvette, who'd been at the wedding. "Loretta, I don't want to start anything, but I overheard something tonight. Call me when you can." My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped the phone. I called her immediately. She answered on the second ring. "Loretta, baby, you okay?" "No, I'm not," I said, pacing across the living room, heels clicking against the hardwood. "Tell me what you heard, please." There was a pause, a long one. Then Yvette sighed. I overheard the bride's mama talking with her sister in the restroom. They were laughing about how Terrence finally knows the truth about you. I stopped cold in the middle of the floor. My breath caught. The truth about me? What truth? Yvette hesitated. I don't know exactly, but whatever it is, Loretta, they made it sound like you've been hiding something from him all his life. My heart thundered so hard I pressed a hand to my chest. That's a lie. I ain't hid nothing from my child, nothing. I believe you, honey, Yvette said softly, but clearly somebody's feeding him another story. When we hung up, I could barely think. I grabbed my purse, yanked my car keys from the counter, and stormed out the door. I didn't even know where I was driving at first. My hands just gripped the wheel and the road blurred beneath the headlights. Finally, I found myself pulling into Terrence's new house. Lights were still on inside. My stomach flipped. I sat in the car for a good 5 minutes, hands trembling on the steering wheel, rehearsing what I'd say. Do I beg him to tell me? Do I demand answers? Do I ask him to look me in the eye and tell me why he treated me like a stranger? Before I could decide, the front door opened. Terrence stepped out, loosening his tie, laughing with his new wife. They looked like a picture from a magazine. Perfect, happy, untouchable. And me? I was the shadow they'd already left behind. But I couldn't stop myself. I pushed the car door open, my heels clicking against the driveway. Terrence. His head jerked toward me. His laughter died instantly. Mama, what are you doing here? The bride stiffened beside him, clutching his arm. Her smile vanished, and I swear her eyes narrowed at me like I was intruding on something sacred. I need to talk to you, I said, my voice cracking but firm. Right now. No audience, no guests, just me and my son. He glanced at her. She shook her head quickly, whispering something I couldn't hear. His jaw tightened. Then he said words that cut me deeper than anything else that night. There's nothing to talk about. You've hidden enough. I froze. My pulse hammered in my ears. Hidden? Hidden what? He wouldn't look me in the eye. He just shook his head and turned to go back inside. I stepped forward, blocking the door with my hand on the frame. My voice rose, desperate, sharp with pain. Terrence, look at me. I'm your mama. What did they tell you? What do you think I've been hiding? For a moment, silence hung in the cool night air. The bride's face hardened. Terrence clenched his fists at his sides. And then, with a coldness I had never heard from his lips before, he whispered, "You're not the person I thought you were." My breath left me, my knees weakened, but I stood my ground, trembling, refusing to let the truth stay buried. Because now I knew somebody had poisoned him against me, and I was going to dig until I unearthed every rotten lie they had planted. I didn't sleep that night. My body was exhausted, but my mind was racing like a runaway train. His words replayed over and over. "You're not the person I thought you were." By morning, my eyes were swollen, but my spirit was sharper than ever. I knew one thing for sure: if I sat back and stayed quiet, I'd lose my son forever. So I went to the one person who might know something, my sister, Denise. She'd always been close to Terrence, sometimes a little too close if you asked me. She spoiled him, slipped him money behind my back, even took him on trips without telling me. At the time, I thought she was just being the fun aunt, but now I wasn't so sure. I showed up at her house unannounced. She was on the porch watering her flowers, humming like her world was perfect. "Denise," I called out, my voice low but firm. She turned, startled. "Well, good morning to you too, Loretta. What's got you knocking on my door this early?" I marched up the steps, heat rising in my chest. "Don't play with me. You know why I'm here. Terrence said I've been hiding something, and I need to know if you had anything to do with it." Her face shifted. For a moment, her eyes darted away before she forced a smile. "Loretta, you always so dramatic. Sit down before you pop a vein." I slapped the railing with my palm, the sound sharp. "Don't you dare dismiss me, Denise. My boy turned me away at his wedding, at his own table, and now he's looking at me like I'm some kind of liar. Tell me the truth." She set the watering can down slowly, then crossed her arms. Maybe the truth finally caught up with you. My stomach flipped. What truth? Spit it out! Her eyes bore into mine, cold and steady. You think you're the only one who raised Terrence? You think you carried all the weight? You might have put food on the table, Loretta, but you left out a piece of his story, and now he knows. I stepped back, my heart pounding so hard it echoed in my ears. Denise, what are you talking about? But she just shook her head, lips tight. It's not my place. If he knows, he knows. Maybe you should have told him yourself instead of letting him find out from someone else. I couldn't breathe. My chest rose and fell fast, my hands trembling. I hissed. What exactly did I not tell him? Tell me. But before she could answer, her husband stepped out onto the porch. What's going on out here? You two gone wake the whole street. Denise straightened, her tone suddenly calm. Nothing, baby. Loretta was just leaving. I stared at her in disbelief. She'd shut me out. She wasn't going to give me the answers I needed. So I turned and stormed down the steps, my heels crunching on the gravel. Rage burned inside me. I could feel neighbors' eyes on me as curtains shifted, but I didn't care. If Denise wouldn't talk, then I'd go straight to the source, Terrence himself. I pulled out my phone, my thumb trembling as I dialed. The call went straight to voicemail. I called again. Same thing. By the third try, I was breathing heavy, almost shouting into the phone. Terrence, it's your mama. You better call me back because I'm not letting this go. I deserve to know what lies they told you. You hear me? I deserve the truth. I hung up, clutching the phone so tight my knuckles went white. My reflection glared back at me in the car window, tired, furious, desperate. That's when I realized something chilling. This wasn't just about a misunderstanding. Someone in my family, someone I trusted, had deliberately turned my son against me. And until I uncovered the truth, I wouldn't rest. The next evening, I drove to Terrence's house again. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard I thought it might crack. The sky was darkening, the streetlights flickering on, casting long shadows across the road. I didn't care if I was intruding. I was done being quiet. When I pulled up, I noticed a black SUV parked across the street, windows tinted, engine still running. Something about it made my stomach knot. I got out, walking quickly up the driveway. My heels clicked against the pavement, the sound sharp in the night air. I was halfway up when the front door burst open. Terrence came out fast, face twisted with anger. Mama, what are you doing here again? I told you to stop showing up like this. Before I could answer, the SUV doors flung open. Two men stepped out, both strangers, both in dark clothes. One of them had his hands stuffed inside his jacket. My pulse jumped. Terrence, I shouted, pointing. Who are they? Terrence froze, eyes darting from me to the men. His bride appeared in the doorway, her voice panicked. Terrence, get inside, now! And then it happened. One of the men pulled out a gun, the metallic click echoing like thunder. I didn't think. I lunged toward Terrence, shoving him back toward the door. The crack of the first shot split the air, sparking off the driveway. Neighbors screamed as windows lit up across the street. Terrence shouted, Mama, get down! We dropped behind his car as more shots rang out. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might burst. Gravel bit into my knees as I crawled lower. Terrence pulled out his phone, yelling into it. Call the police! Now! His bride's voice cracked with fear from inside the house. The men moved closer, their footsteps pounding against the pavement. You thought you could hide it forever, huh? One of them barked. His voice was rough, laced with rage. I gasped, my mind spinning. Hide what? Was this connected to the same secret tearing me and my son apart? Another shot whizzed past, glass shattering from the car window above me. I covered my head with both hands, trembling. Then Terrence grabbed my arm. Mama, run. Go around the back. But I couldn't leave him. I couldn't just abandon my son, not with men aiming guns at him. I'm not leaving you, Terrence, I screamed back, my voice breaking. He stared at me, sweat glistening on his forehead, his jaw clenched. For the first time in days, I saw fear in his eyes. Real fear, not anger. The sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, but the men weren't backing down. They fired again, the bullet hitting the siding of the house. And then, just as the police cars screeched around the corner, one of the men shouted something that froze me to my core. "Ask your mama about the past, Terrence. Ask her what she did." The men bolted back into the SUV, tires screeching as they tore off down the street. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of gunpowder. My body shook all over. Neighbors crowded outside, murmuring, pointing. Police rushed toward us, weapons drawn, asking if we were hurt. But I couldn't hear them. All I could hear was that man's voice echoing in my head. "Ask your mama about the past. Ask her what she did." Terrence turned to me, his chest heaving, sweat running down his temple. His eyes wide, searching, furious, locked on mine. "Mama," he whispered hoarsely, "what did you do?" And for the first time in my life, I didn't have an answer ready. Blue and red lights bathed the entire street, flashing against the houses, the trees, even the stunned faces of neighbors who stood whispering on their porches. My heart was still hammering from the gunfire, but the police swarming around us barely gave me a second to breathe. An officer approached, flashlight cutting across my face. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" I shook my head quickly, clutching my chest. No, but my son—" I reached for Terrence, who was pacing with his hands on his head, his shirt damp with sweat. Another officer stopped him. "Sir, we need a statement. Did you know those men?" Terrence snapped, voice hoarse. "No, I don't know them, but they sure as hell knew my mama." The word mama hit me like a stone. He said it with anger, not love. The officer's eyes flicked to me. "Is that true? Do you recognize them?" I swallowed hard. My throat was dry as sandpaper. No, I've never seen them before in my life. But inside, my stomach twisted. Why had that man shouted like he knew something about me? Why aim guns at my son and blame me? The officers fanned out, collecting shell casings, talking into radios. The SUV was gone, but everyone knew it wouldn't be long before questions came crashing down. Meanwhile, Terrence rounded on me. His face was tight, his jaw trembling with barely contained fury. "You heard what that man said," he barked. "Don't you dare stand here and pretend. What did you do? What past is he talking about?" I froze. The officers were only a few feet away, listening. My chest heaved as I whispered, "Not here, not with them listening." He took a step closer, eyes burning into mine. "No, Mama. Right here, right now. I almost died out there tonight. Don't you keep me in the dark another second." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. My mind flashed back to the night his father walked out on us. The secrets I had buried, the choices I'd made when Terrence was still too young to understand. My knees felt weak. "I can't," I whispered, voice trembling. His hands flew up in disbelief. "You can't? You've been hiding something my whole life, haven't you? That's why Denise and them been acting strange, why the bride's family been whispering behind my back. They all know, don't they? Everybody but me." I stepped forward, reaching for him, but he jerked away. His rejection cut me sharper than any bullet could. Then suddenly, the bride's voice rang out from the porch. "Terrence, come inside. She's not going to tell you the truth. She never will." My head snapped toward her. My heart nearly stopped. "What did you just say?" I demanded, my voice rising. She met my eyes, cold and steady. "I know what you did, Loretta, and so does my family. That's why you weren't given a seat at the wedding. That's why Terrence has the right to hate you." The officers turned, watching the tension unfold like a live wire. Terrence spun back to me, his chest heaving, his fists clenched. "Mama," he said slowly, his voice breaking between fury and fear, "either you tell me right now, or I swear I'll never forgive you." The air was so heavy I thought I'd collapse under it. My mouth opened, the words trembling at the edge of my lips. But before I could speak, an officer shouted from the street, "We found something!" Everyone turned. In the bushes across the road, they'd discovered a small black duffel bag. An officer unzipped it, pulling out stacks of papers, some old photographs, and what looked like a pistol wrapped in cloth. The bride gasped. Terrence's eyes darted from the bag to me. And then he asked the question that shattered me. "Mama, why is your name on those papers?" The officer held up the papers under the flashing lights. My name, Loretta Jameson, was scrawled across the top of an old police report, stained yellow with time. My whole body went cold, the night air wrapping around me like ice. "Say!" Terrence's voice thundered across the driveway. "Answer me, Mama, why is your name on that?" The crowd of neighbors murmured louder, some clutching their robes, others whispering into phones. The bride smirked from the porch like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. I staggered forward, shaking my head. No, that's not what it looks like. The officer narrowed his eyes. "Ma'am, you know we're going to need to take these down to the station." I raised my hands in protest, my voice breaking. "That was years ago. Years ago, I thought it was gone." Terrence grabbed my arm, his grip tight and desperate. "Gone? Mama, what are you talking about? What did you do?" Before I could answer, another officer pulled out the wrapped pistol from the bag. He slowly unrolled the cloth, revealing a black revolver with scratches along the barrel. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Terrence's bride crossed her arms. "That's the truth right there. She's been hiding it all along." My chest heaved, the world spinning around me. "That gun? No, I haven't seen that in years." The officer raised a hand. "Ma'am, you need to calm down. Do you recognize this weapon or not?" I shook my head violently, tears brimming. No, yes, I've seen one like it, but it wasn't mine. It wasn't mine." Terrence stepped back from me like I was a stranger. His voice cracked, full of anger and disbelief. "Mama, please, tell me you didn't kill somebody." The words stabbed through me sharper than glass. And then, just when the tension felt unbearable, the same black SUV screeched around the corner again, headlights blinding. Neighbors screamed and scattered. Officers shouted, guns drawn as the SUV slowed in front of the house. One of the windows rolled down, and the same rough voice from before bellowed into the night. "Tell him the truth, Loretta, or we will." Gunfire erupted, bullets sparking against police cars. Officers dove behind their vehicles, returning fire. The neighborhood turned into chaos. Sirens, shouts, glass shattering. I dropped to the ground, my arms covering my head, my ears ringing from the shots. Terrence pulled me down behind the car, shielding me with his body. His face was twisted in fear, but his eyes burned into mine. "Mama, talk. Tell me what you did before they kill us both." Tears streamed down my face. My voice shook as I whispered, "I never wanted you to know like this." But before I could finish, the SUV sped off again, tires squealing as more officers chased after it. The sudden silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the crackle of radios and the wails of terrified neighbors. The bride stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. "He deserves to know, Loretta. If you won't tell him, I will." Terrence whipped his head toward her. "You knew? You knew and didn't tell me?" Her eyes gleamed in the flashing red and blue lights. "Of course I knew. My family told me. That's why we kept her in the back. That's why we made sure she had no place at this wedding." Terrence turned back to me, his face pale, trembling. "Mama, what did you do that everybody knows? But me?" And standing there in the middle of flashing lights, shell casings scattered at my feet, and a neighborhood watching, I realized there was no more running. The secret I had buried for decades was clawing its way to the surface. The neighborhood was still rattling from the gunfire when an officer grabbed me by the arm. "Ma'am, we're taking you in, now." But Terrence yanked me back, his voice sharp, almost breaking. "No. She's not going anywhere until she tells me what the hell is going on." The officers looked at each other, tense, unsure. The bride smirked again, arms folded across her chest like she was watching a show unfold exactly how she wanted. Then, before I could speak, the roar of the black SUV returned. This time, it didn't stop at the curb. It swerved straight into the driveway. Screams exploded from the crowd as people scattered. "Down!" an officer shouted. Glass shattered as bullets riddled the side of a squad car. Police returned fire instantly, ducking low and shooting back. The whole block flashed with muzzle fire, sirens wailing in the distance as reinforcements sped closer. Terrence dragged me behind a neighbor's brick mailbox, his hand clamped around my wrist so tight it hurt. "Mama," he shouted over the chaos, "what did you do? Why are they after you?" My chest heaved, my throat raw, the words clawed up but stuck in my mouth. The bride crouched nearby, her face twisted with rage. She yelled through the gunfire. "She killed him, Terrence. Your mama pulled the trigger 30 years ago. That's what this is all about." The world stopped. Terrence froze, staring at me like I was a stranger. His lips trembled. "Is it true?" Tears blurred my vision as memories I'd spent my life burying came rushing back. The night, the fight, the gun, blood on the floor. "It was an accident," I cried out, my voice tearing through the gunfire. "I didn't mean to. He was hurting me, Terrence. He was hurting me, and I snapped. I only wanted him to stop." Terrence staggered back, his breath catching as if my words knocked the air out of him. The SUV screeched to a halt again, doors flying open. Men in black masks jumped out, guns drawn. One of them shouted, "She's lying. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she's going to pay for it tonight." Bullets ripped through the yard, sparks flying as they clashed with police gunfire. The masked men advanced, ducking behind cars, firing in bursts. Officers fired back, shouting commands, the night alive with chaos. Terrence shoved me toward the ground, shielding me. His voice cracked. "Mama, you should have told me. You should have told me years ago." The bride, crouched behind the porch railing, yelled, "Now you see why she doesn't deserve a place in this family, Terrence. She's nothing but a killer hiding in plain sight." A masked man aimed his gun straight at me. My heart stopped. Then Terrence moved. My son, my baby, grabbed a fallen officer's pistol and fired back. The shot rang out sharp and clean, dropping the masked man where he stood. The entire street went silent for half a heartbeat. Terrence's hands shook as he held the smoking gun, his chest rising and falling in heavy bursts, his eyes locked on me, tears streaking down his face. "Mama, I just killed a man for you. For you." And in that moment, I knew nothing about this night would ever be forgotten or forgiven. The street smelled of gunpowder and smoke. Sirens wailed closer, but the fight wasn't done. The men in masks regrouped behind the SUV, shouting orders, reloading with mechanical precision. The police huddled behind their cruisers, ducking every time bullets sparked against the steel. And in the middle of it all stood Terrence, his arm trembling as he pointed the pistol, caught between protecting me and breaking down. "Terrence, drop the gun," an officer yelled. "You're not trained for this. Get down." But my son didn't budge. His voice shook as he barked back, "If they want my mother, they'll have to go through me." One of the masked men laughed, his voice deep and familiar enough to make my stomach twist. "She's not worth dying for, boy. Don't you know who your mama really is?" I froze. The man yanked off his mask. The porch light hit his face and my knees buckled. It was Darnell, my brother-in-law, the one I thought moved down south years ago. "Darnell," I whispered, my throat closing. Terrence's eyes darted between us, his voice sharp and wild. "You know him." Before I could answer, Darnell raised his weapon, fury dripping from every word. "She killed my brother, your daddy, Terrence, and tonight I'm finishing this." The truth was out, the kind I never wanted my son to hear, not like this. Terrence's grip on the pistol tightened. He swung it from me to Darnell and back again. His breathing hitched, his face pale. You killed my father?" he whispered to me, his voice shaking like a child again. Tears blurred my sight, but I forced myself to speak over the gunfire rattling around us. "Your father was beating me, Terrence. I couldn't take it anymore. It wasn't planned. It was survival." Darnell roared, firing shots that ricocheted off the squad car. Officers returned fire, sparks flying as bullets zipped inches over our heads. The bride screamed from the porch, ducking low, clutching her wedding dress to keep from tripping. "Terrence, make a choice. Either you stand with your mother or you stand with the truth." The sound of her voice sent a chill through me. She wasn't scared. She was enjoying it, like she had been waiting for this night all along. Terrence's hand shook violently. He aimed at me, then at Darnell. His voice cracked. "I don't know who to believe. I don't know who's lying to me anymore." I lunged forward, grabbing his arm just as Darnell fired again. The bullet whizzed past Terrence's ear, close enough to singe his skin. Terrence pulled the trigger instinctively, and his shot rang out, slamming straight into Darnell's shoulder. Darnell screamed, collapsing against the SUV as his men fired wildly in rage. Police surged forward, shouting commands, bullets tearing through the night. Terrence dropped the pistol, his chest heaving. He looked at his bloody hands like they didn't belong to him. "I shot him, my own uncle. What's happening to me?" I cupped his face, trembling. "You did what you had to, baby. You saved yourself." But deep inside, I knew this wasn't over. Not with the bride smirking in the shadows, not with Darnell still alive, clutching his wound and screaming, "This ain't finished, sister-in-law. I'll drag the truth out in front of everybody before this night is over." And in that moment, I realized the wedding wasn't ruined yet. It was about to turn into the bloodiest family reunion this neighborhood had ever seen. Gunfire lit up the street like fireworks, only these sparks carried death. Neighbors were screaming, dragging kids inside, doors slamming and locks clicking while bullets tore holes through fences and mailboxes. The wedding had turned into a battlefield. I pulled Terrence down behind a police cruiser as officers returned fire. My heart hammered so hard it felt like it would burst. I wanted to scream, to hold him, to beg for it all to stop, but the danger didn't give me time. Darnell, clutching his bleeding shoulder, crawled to the SUV and yelled at his masked men. "Light the damn house up, burn it down if you have to, but she's not walking away again." One of the masked men lit a bottle, fire licking up the rag. My stomach dropped. "Terrence," I shouted, shoving him forward. "We gotta move, now!" The Molotov cocktail arced through the air, crashing against the porch. Flames exploded, climbing the railings, licking at the windows. Guests still trapped inside screamed for help. The bride stumbled down the steps, her white dress dragging flames with it. Her eyes were wild, not with fear but with fury. She ripped the burning hem away and shrieked at Terrence. "Your mother is poison. Everything she touches turns to ashes. You want to save lives tonight, then stop protecting her." Terrence was frozen, torn between me, the woman who raised him, and the bride he'd just vowed to love forever. I grabbed his arm, desperation raw in my throat. "Baby, listen to me. Your uncle wants revenge, and she's feeding it. You can't let them control you like this." But before he could speak, Darnell staggered forward, raising his gun with his good arm, his face twisted with hate. "You think I care about control? She stole my brother's life. I swore I'd take hers in front of her boy, and tonight's the night." He fired. I shoved Terrence hard, taking the bullet in my shoulder. The impact burned, my body jerking backward into the dirt. Pain ripped through me like fire in my veins. "Mama!" Terrence screamed, falling to his knees beside me. His hands pressed against the wound, blood slicking between his fingers. His tears fell hot against my face as he begged, "Stay with me. Please stay with me." My vision blurred, but I forced myself to focus through the pain. The gunfight was still raging, officers dropping one by one, masked men reloading and firing without mercy. The flames from the porch spread to the roof, black smoke swallowing the stars. Terrence stood, blood smeared across his suit. His face hardened in a way I'd never seen. He picked up the pistol again and leveled it at Darnell, his voice breaking but strong. "You want my mother. You'll have to go through me again, and this time I won't miss." The bride screamed from the porch, coughing through the smoke. "Terrence, don't! He's your family." Terrence's jaw clenched, his eyes wet but furious. "No, she's my family, and if I lose her tonight, I lose myself." And then he fired. The bullet slammed into Darnell's chest. He dropped to his knees, choking, eyes wide with disbelief. He gasped once, twice, then collapsed against the flames. The street went silent. The masked men froze, their leader gone. Police surged forward, tackling them, handcuffing, dragging them down. The crackle of the burning house filled the night, broken only by sirens closing in. Terrence dropped the gun, falling beside me again. His voice broke into sobs as he held my face in his bloody hands. "I killed him, Mama. I killed my own uncle. What kind of man am I now?" I winced through the pain, my hand trembling as I reached for his cheek. "You're my son," I whispered, tears streaking down. "And tonight, you became more of a man than your father ever was." But as the fire roared higher and the guests cried out for help inside the house, I realized one truth that stabbed deeper than the bullet in my flesh. This family war wasn't finished yet. Someone else, someone still breathing, was waiting to deliver the final blow. And I already knew who. The house blazed like an inferno, flames swallowing the porch, licking up the walls, smoke curling into the night sky. Wedding decorations burned into ash, the laughter, the dancing, the vows, all gone, replaced by screams and sirens. I could barely keep my eyes open, my shoulder bleeding badly, but I clung to Terrence's hand. He wouldn't let go, even as chaos erupted around us. Police dragged Darnell's men away in chains. Some neighbors ran forward with buckets of water. Others pulled guests through shattered windows. It looked like a war zone, but even in the chaos, I felt it. Someone watching, waiting. And then she stepped forward. The bride. Her wedding dress was torn, stained with ash and blood, but her eyes, they glowed with a hatred so sharp it cut through the smoke. She picked up Darnell's fallen gun and pointed it straight at me. "You thought this was over, didn't you?" she hissed. Her voice shook, not from fear but rage. "Your lies destroyed this family long before tonight. You killed his father. You poisoned his heart. And now you want to pretend you're the victim?" Terrence stood up, blocking her aim. His voice cracked but was firm. "Put it down, Jasmine. Put the gun down." "No!" she screamed, her hand trembling but steady enough to kill. "I gave up everything for you, Terrence. I chose you over my own blood, and still, she ruined us. She's the reason we'll never have peace." Her finger slid to the trigger. The whole world slowed. I forced myself up despite the pain, clutching my wound. My voice was hoarse, weak, but it carried. "Jasmine, you don't want this. Don't do something you can't take back." Her eyes burned into me. "You don't get to tell me what I want. You took your shot 30 years ago. Now it's my turn." Terrence moved fast, too fast. He grabbed her wrist, twisting hard. The gun went off with a deafening crack. The bullet tore through the air and struck a police cruiser, shattering glass. Jasmine shrieked, fighting him with a fury I didn't know she had. "Let me go!" she screamed, kicking and clawing. Terrence struggled, tears streaming down his face. "Stop! Stop, Jasmine! This isn't you!" But it was her. With one savage jerk, she broke free and aimed again, this time not at me, but at Terrence. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. I just moved. I threw myself between them just as she pulled the trigger. The blast ripped through me, white-hot agony exploding in my chest. I staggered, falling into Terrence's arms, blood pouring out faster than he could stop. "Mama! No, no, please, stay with me," he sobbed, cradling me like a child again. His tears fell onto my face, burning hotter than the flames behind us. Police swarmed Jasmine, wrestling her to the ground, the gun clattering away. She screamed and kicked, spitting venom. She deserved it. She deserved it for everything she's done. But her words faded into nothing as the world dimmed around me. My son's face was the only thing I could see, his voice the only thing I could hear. "Mama, please, don't leave me. I can't lose you too." I raised a trembling hand, brushing his cheek, blood smearing his skin. My voice was barely a whisper, but it carried every ounce of truth I had left. You didn't lose me, baby. You saved me, just by being my son. The night spun, sirens echoing, voices shouting, but all I felt was peace. And as my eyes closed, I prayed my story. The lies, the pain, the love would live on through him, long after the gunfire and flames faded into silence. The end. Please like and subscribe for more rich stories like this. Let us know in the comments below which lesson you learned from this story, and where you are watching from, and what time you are currently watching this video. Also, if you really loved this video and want to support the channel directly, you can hit that super thanks button below.